There's something uniquely violating about being robbed by family, and there's something even worse about being made to feel like you're the problem for not just letting it slide. But that's exactly what happened to me last Thanksgiving when I caught my brother-in-law stealing cash from my wallet during dinner, and my husband's entire family acted like I was the villain for calling the police. So I'm a 34-year-old woman, and I've been married to my husband Derek for 6 years, and his family has always been a bit much, very loud and chaotic and boundary-crossing in ways that I've learned to tolerate for Derek's sake, but his younger brother Marcus has always been a particular problem. Marcus is 28, and he's what you'd generously call a mess. He's never held down a steady job for more than a few months. He's constantly asking family members for money, and he's got a history of petty theft and drug issues that everyone in the family just makes excuses for because he's the baby of the family, and their parents enable him constantly. Derek and I host Thanksgiving every year because we have the biggest house, and this past Thanksgiving we had about 20 people over, including Derek's parents, his 2 sisters and their families, and Marcus, who showed up alone because his girlfriend had apparently just dumped him. The day started off normal enough. I spent all morning cooking while Derek got the house ready, and people started arriving around 2 in the afternoon, and Marcus showed up around 3 already seeming kind of off, like his eyes were glassy and he was talking too fast and being overly friendly in that way that made me uncomfortable. I had my purse sitting on the desk in our home office because that's where I always put it when we have people over. It's kind of out of the way, and I figured it would be safe there, and I'd taken $300 out of the ATM the day before because I was planning to go Black Friday shopping, and I prefer using cash for that. We were all sitting down to eat, and I noticed Marcus wasn't at the table, and I asked Derek where his brother was, and he said he thought Marcus had gone to the bathroom. And we waited a few minutes, but Marcus didn't come back, so we started eating without him. About 5 minutes into dinner, Marcus came back and sat down looking nervous and fidgety, and I didn't think much of it at the time because Marcus always looks nervous and fidgety. But then I noticed he had his phone out under the table and seemed to be texting someone urgently, which was rude, but again, kind of typical Marcus behavior. After dinner, I went to the office to grab my phone charger, and I saw that my purse had been moved. It was sitting at a different angle than I'd left it, and the zipper was partially open, and I got this sick feeling in my stomach and immediately checked my wallet. The $300 in cash was completely gone, and I went through my whole purse to make sure I hadn't moved it somewhere else, but it was definitely gone. Someone had taken it. I immediately knew it was Marcus because he was the only person who'd been missing during dinner, and he had that guilty look when he came back. And I was absolutely furious because not only did he steal from me, he did it in my own home while I was hosting him for Thanksgiving. I walked back out to where everyone was having coffee and dessert, and I said very calmly that someone had gone through my purse and taken $300, and I needed whoever did it to return it immediately. And the room went completely silent, and people started looking around at each other uncomfortably. Derek's mom said surely no one here would steal from family, and maybe I'd miscounted or left the money somewhere else. And I said no. I knew exactly how much money I had, and it was definitely taken from my purse in the office, and I looked directly at Marcus when I said it. Marcus's face went bright red, and he said, "Why are you looking at me?" And I said, because you were the only person who wasn't at the dinner table, and you're the one with a history of stealing. And he got super defensive and said he didn't take anything, and I was accusing him just because of his past. Derek's dad jumped in and said this was an appropriate dinner conversation, and we should deal with this later, and I said, no, we're dealing with it right now because someone stole $300 from me, and until it's returned or we figure out who took it, nobody's leaving. Marcus stood up and said he wasn't going to sit here and be accused of something he didn't do. And he started heading toward the door, and I blocked his path and told Derek to check Marcus's pockets. Derek looked really uncomfortable and said he wasn't going to search his brother like a criminal, and I said, fine, then I'm calling the police and reporting a theft. And Derek's entire family started talking over each other, saying I was being dramatic and it was Thanksgiving and we didn't need to involve the police over some missing money. I pulled out my phone and started dialing 911, and Marcus completely panicked and said, wait, okay, fine, he took the money, but he was going to pay it back. He just needed it for something urgent, and he was going to tell me after dinner. I asked him to give it back right now, and he said he didn't have it anymore. He'd already given it to someone, and I asked him who he could have possibly given it to in the 15 minutes since he stole it. And he admitted he'd texted his drug dealer to meet him outside and handed the money through our front window while we were eating dinner. I was absolutely speechless because not only did he steal from me, he invited his drug dealer to my house on Thanksgiving and handed him cash through my window while my entire family was inside eating. And when I said this out loud, Derek's mom started crying and saying this was all too much stress and why was I making such a big deal out of this. I told her I was making a big deal out of it because her son committed a crime. He stole $300 from me to buy drugs, and he did it in my home during a family holiday. And she said Marcus had a disease. An addiction is hard, and I should have more compassion. I said I had plenty of compassion, but compassion doesn't mean letting people steal from me without consequences. And I finished dialing 911 and reported the theft, and Derek's family absolutely lost it on me. Derek's sisters were saying I was tearing the family apart over money. His dad was saying this would ruin Marcus's life if he got arrested. And Derek himself was begging me to hang up and not file a report. But I stayed on the line and gave my statement to the dispatcher and said I wanted to press charges. The police showed up about 20 minutes later, and by that point, half the family had left in protest. Derek's parents had taken Marcus to another room and were coaching him on what to say, and Derek was furious with me, saying I'd ruined Thanksgiving and humiliated his family. The officers took statements from everyone, and I showed them where my purse had been and explained about the missing cash, and Marcus admitted to taking it but claimed he was planning to pay it back, so it wasn't really stealing, and the officers explained that it was absolutely stealing regardless of his intentions to pay it back. They arrested Marcus for theft and took him to the station, and as they were walking him out, Derek's mom was screaming at me that I'd destroyed her family and she'd never forgive me for this, and Derek's dad said I was vindictive and cruel for pressing charges against family. After everyone left, it was just Derek and me, and the house was a disaster from Thanksgiving dinner, and we had this massive fight where he said I'd gone too far and there were other ways to handle this that didn't involve getting his brother arrested. And I said, like what, Derek? Like letting him steal from us with no consequences, like enabling his addiction the way your parents do. Derek said Marcus needed help, not jail time, and I said then his parents should have gotten him help years ago instead of making excuses every time he screwed up. But that doesn't mean I have to let him victimize me in my own home. We barely spoke for the rest of the weekend. Derek slept in the guest room and spent most of his time on the phone with his family coordinating Marcus's bail and talking to lawyers. And every conversation I overheard involved them talking about me like I was the enemy. Marcus made bail that Saturday thanks to his parents paying it, and the first thing he did was post on Facebook about how his own family betrayed him in his time of need, and he couldn't believe his brother's wife called the cops on him over a small misunderstanding, and all his friends and family members were commenting supportive things, and some of them were tagging me in comments calling me heartless and a snake. I got messages from Derek's extended family members I'd never even met telling me I was wrong for what I did and that family doesn't call the police on family no matter what, and I was absolutely floored that these people thought I was the villain in a situation where I was literally the victim of a theft. Derek's sisters both called me separately to tell me I'd overreacted and I needed to drop the charges because Marcus couldn't afford a criminal record. And when I said he should have thought about that before stealing from me, they both said I was being petty and vindictive and they couldn't believe their brother married someone so cold. My own family was completely supportive when I told them what happened. My mom said she would have done the exact same thing and you don't get to steal from people just because you're related to them. And my dad offered to help pay for a lawyer if Derek's family tried to retaliate against me somehow. The court date was set for January, and in the weeks leading up to it, Derek was under constant pressure from his family to convince me to drop the charges. And he'd come home from work and immediately start in on me about how this was tearing his family apart and how Marcus was really struggling and couldn't I just let it go? I told him no, I couldn't just let it go. Marcus stole $300 from me and showed zero remorse. He didn't apologize or offer to pay it back. He just played the victim and got his family to attack me. And I wasn't going to reward that behavior by dropping charges. Derek said I cared more about being right than about his family, and I said his family cared more about protecting Marcus than about the fact that he committed a crime against me, and we were at a complete standstill. Christmas was absolutely miserable. We didn't go to Derek's family's celebration because his mom uninvited me saying I wasn't welcome after what I'd done to Marcus, and Derek went alone and came back even more distant and cold toward me. He told me his whole family had spent Christmas talking about what a horrible person I was and how I'd ruined Marcus's life. And when I asked if he'd defended me at all, he said he tried, but it was hard to defend what I'd done. And that's when I realized my own husband had turned on me too. I asked Derek point blank whose side he was on, mine or his thieving brother's, and he said it wasn't about sides, it was about family, and I said, "I'm your family too, Derek, I'm your wife." And he said I knew what his family was like when I married him, and I should have handled this differently. We had the biggest fight of our marriage where I told him that if he couldn't support me when I was literally the victim of a crime committed by his brother, then maybe we had bigger problems than I thought. And he said maybe we did. And I told him he needed to decide if he wanted to be married to me or married to his family's dysfunction. The court date came in January, and I showed up ready to testify, but Marcus's lawyer had worked out a plea deal where Marcus pleaded guilty to petty theft and got probation and community service and had to pay restitution, which meant I'd eventually get my $300 back plus court fees. I was fine with that outcome. I wasn't trying to send Marcus to prison, I just wanted him to face some kind of consequence for stealing from me. But Derek's family acted like I'd personally demanded the maximum sentence and destroyed Marcus's life. Derek's mom sent me a long text message saying she hoped I was happy now that Marcus had a criminal record and would struggle to find employment, and his life was ruined all because I couldn't show a little compassion, and I didn't even respond because what was the point? My relationship with Derek's family is completely destroyed. I haven't seen or spoken to any of them since Thanksgiving except for the court date, and according to Derek, they've all written me off as this evil outsider who turned their son against them, even though Derek is the one who chose to take their side over mine. Derek and I ended up going to marriage counseling because we were on the verge of divorce, and the therapist helped him see that his family's behavior was enabling Marcus's addiction, and that I had every right to press charges when someone stole from me, regardless of familial relationship. Derek eventually apologized for not supporting me and said he'd been so caught up in his family's drama that he couldn't see clearly, and he admitted that his family had always made excuses for Marcus, and it had probably made his addiction worse, and he was starting to realize how dysfunctional the whole dynamic was. We're still in counseling and working on our marriage, but it's been hard because Derek's family is still a constant presence in his life, and they still hate me. And I've made it clear that I'm not attending any family functions where Marcus will be present, and I'm not apologizing for doing what I had to do. Marcus has been in and out of rehab since the court date. His parents finally got him into a program after the theft charge. But from what Derek tells me, Marcus isn't taking it seriously, and his parents are still enabling him by paying for everything and making excuses when he relapses. I've had a few people ask me if I regret calling the police, and my answer is absolutely not. Someone stole from me and I reported it. That's what you're supposed to do, and the fact that the thief was my brother-in-law doesn't change the basic facts of the situation. I think the whole experience taught me a lot about Derek's family and about what they consider acceptable behavior, and it showed me that to them, family loyalty means protecting the people who do wrong rather than supporting the people who were wronged, and I can't respect that mentality. If I could go back and do it differently, I wouldn't change anything except maybe I would have set clearer boundaries with Marcus from the beginning. I knew he was trouble and I should have never left my purse somewhere he could access it, but that doesn't make what he did my fault. It just means I was too trusting. Derek has slowly started to set more boundaries with his family. He doesn't see them as often, and he's stopped giving Marcus money when he asks, and he's been more willing to call out their enabling behavior. But it's a work in progress, and I know his family blames me for turning him against them. Looking back at that Thanksgiving, I still can't believe how quickly everything went from a normal family dinner to my brother-in-law getting arrested, and I can't believe how many people thought I was wrong for reporting a crime that happened to me, but it really opened my eyes to how some families operate and how they'll protect their own no matter what they've done. Here's my question for you. If a family member stole from you in your own home, would you call the police or would you handle it differently? And do you think I went too far by pressing charges? I'm genuinely curious what other people would do in this situation, so drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if you found this story as crazy as I did, then go ahead and hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up, because it really helps us keep sharing these wild family drama stories. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.